Well, hello again. Welcome. Welcome into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, joined by my grinning like a Chessy cat colleague. She is PLPC Carla McCormick.
Hey, so today's kind of like our Friday, right? Since we're not on Fridays right now.
We passed the torch to
silly football.
To Tim. Don't say silly football. You can't say that.
Okay, I'm sorry, football fans.
Tim Fletcher would be highly insulted. You know.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Yeah, sorry. You're gonna have to look into his eyes now and tell him you're sorry.
Okay, and mean it.
And mean it. Tim and Rogers Hampton and the gang that put together. What do they call it?
It's Friday Football Frenzy.
Friday Football Frenzy. They get in a frenzy in here. And we are also joined by our ace producer. He keeps us flying high, low, and in between. He is Rapid Ruben Wright.
Good evening, everybody.
So let me ask you something, Carlo. Do you ever think of maybe look at Ruben? Take a good look at him.
He's a cutie pie.
Yeah. Do you think he needs a makeover? Would you give him a makeover?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well,
my wife would beg to differ.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm not really talking about when I'm saying makeovers. I'm not talking about the kind of makeovers that we're thinking that you're probably thinking about. Is it possible to do a personality makeover?
Yes.
Okay. You're going to come back and tell us how to do it then.
Okay.
Okay. Because
I can tell you how I did it.
All right. Very good. We do have a versatile self. Personality is hardly a fixed star in the human cosmos. And the essential traits change with experience, they change with effort, and they change with age. We're going to talk about all of that as we talk about the versatile self this evening here on Strategies. You can give yourself a personality makeover. We'll come back and talk about how. Thank you for tuning in. We're brought to you by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Has been helping individuals and families now for 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. Back to talk about the versatile self. Let Carla teach us how to morph our personality. All tonight on Strategies.
Love me twice today.
And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL, PLPC. Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. So a lot of us, feel like that we've changed over the years, perhaps, but we're likely to see other people as not so much changing, as more stable. You realize that?
Okay, so yeah. I think I'm changing and growing, but you're staying the same?
Yeah.
Same old stagnant stuff?
The dozens of ways that we human beings have conceptualized personality indicates its variability, its elusiveness. Let's think about some of them. The Greeks, all the way back to the Greeks' four temperaments: phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholic, and choleric. Carl Jung did some variations on that, I think. Of course, we've got the 12 astrological signs. What's your sign?
Yield.
Yield. Are you Aries? Are you Pisces? Are you Virgo? Are you Scorpio? What are you? And then there's the Myers-Briggs, the 16 Myers-Briggs personality types. Are you introverted or extroverted? Are you thinking or feeling? Are you intuitive or sensitive? Sensing, rather. Are you judging or perceiving? So naturally, those mining big data for marketing and advertising and sales, and of course, anytime we go through an election cycle, you see this stuff. So everybody's gotten into the act, right? And you've probably taken a lot of the Facebook,
little tests,
quizzes, and
what color are you?
Yeah, well, what color is your personality? What classic film star are you? Would you be able to survive on Mars? All of that stuff. So in a lot of psychological research, it's the big five personality traits that get measured, and those big five are neuroticism, conscientiousness, openness, extroversion, and agreeableness. Those are kind of the big five, and in spite of a belief that inborn tendencies reign, turns out that there is a shift, that you can shift those big five things, either by the force of life. I mean, just doing life, living life can adjust some of those things. Experience, in other words. But you can also put an effort forth. If you don't like something about one of those things, let's just pick on neuroticism. So neuroticism is, how much responsibility do I take? And you and I both know how neurotic I am. I mean, I take responsibility for everything, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, probably a little bit. But but I'm trying. You're working with me. We were just chatting in the hall. You were just kicking me.
We were having hall therapy.
My behind hurts.
Well, mine hurt from yesterday.
Yeah, I know. We do it to each other. But the point is that these can change. These can, and they do alter, they do change.
How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
One, but the light bulb's got to want to change.
There
right?
you go. You got to want it.
Yeah. So, you can put forth efforts. The other thing I think is these mellow with age. These kind of over the course of a lifetime kind of mellow out. There was a recently published paper that combined 14 longitudinal studies of personality, and they found that all of those big five traits changed over individuals' lives, except for agreeableness. The traits tended to decrease slightly, with people becoming more moderate and temperate with time.
Mellow with age.
Yeah. Another study published last year found that neuroticism in particular decreases with age. The more we just live life, I guess, the more we realize, well, I can't be responsible. I can't do anything about what Carla's going to do or what Ruben's going to do, what decisions they make. Encouragingly, that same team of researchers also found that just a few months of therapy can actually lower neuroticism substantially to about half of what 40 years of living would do to a neurotic person. So that's pretty good, you know. And finally, a 2016 study analyzed the personalities of the same group of people when they were teenagers, and then they did it again 63 years later. And though traits measured don't correspond precisely to the Big Five, the scores at age 14 had no correlation to the scores at age 77.
See, I see that as a good thing. That
Yeah.
makes me,
Yeah.
that's growth. I mean, who wants to be the same even this year as they were last year? I mean, you know, I would like to think that I continue to get better, you know, kinder, gentler, you know, more loving, more kind, more joy. I mean, that's what I mean by better.
Yeah, you know, we've thrown out the questions on programs before. You know, what you know, the big questions. Who are you? What are you doing here? Where are you going? All the major religions attempt to answer those questions. But the thing is, I mean, you know, I think if we want to be healthy, we need to put ourselves at least in one of those questions. Well, one of my purposes is here to learn. You know, I'm going to put myself in a student frame of mind, a student mode, which takes me then out of I know everything. You know, and I'm just going to make you fit into the boxes that I believe that I know. Right.
Well, and I mean, I can't help but think that is when people operate out of fear. You know, this is just the way I am. I've been this way my whole life, and I'm not gonna change.
Yeah.
You know, and because to change requires action, and you know, for some people that's scary.
Yeah. I should reference that we are, I'm quoting from an article. This article that I'm quoting from is written by Carlin Flora, and it is published in a publication called The Science of Personality. And so just give credit where credit is due. There's a social personality psychologist at SMU over in just down the road in Dallas-Fort Worth, Nathan Hudson. He says the vast majority of people want to change at least some aspects of their personality. And Nathan Hudson operates the Personality Assessor website. Such wishes grow out of dissatisfaction. For example, students who aren't happy with their college experience might say that they want to become more conscientious, more thorough, more responsible, more organized, more hardworking, because it would help them to raise their grades. The single biggest change that most people want is, what do you think? What do you think the biggest single change is? Because this is a biggie.
Peace, emotional
yeah.
calmness.
Yeah, that's it. Emotional stability.
Oh, stability. Okay.
Emotional stability is the biggest single thing that Hudson says people want. He says emotional stability refers to feeling fewer negative emotions, things like stress and sadness and anxiety and irritability and anger. The second most desired personality change is to become more conscientious. But ranking aside, what we really yearn for amounts to the Big Five jackpot. Most people also want to become more outgoing. In other words, more extroverted.
Because if I'm more confident, then I can be more. So is
assertiveness, sociable, extroverted, agreeable, kind, loving, tender-hearted, open to new experiences, adventurous, imaginative, intellectual.
And that's what they view extroverts as.
That's the way. Yeah, I see, and I have a bit of a problem because in using that terminology.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, because I see. I think it's important not to say, well, an introvert is not open to new experiences or imaginative or intellectual or kind or loving. See, I think that's bunk.
Well, and because in the past, that's what we've told introverts.
That's exactly the point.
And
that's
it's
exactly
not.
the
It's
point.
just not true.
No, that's exactly the point. And so, but still, we've told people that. That's what a lot of people believe. So that's what they say they want. They label it. They label it that. I want to be more extroverted. When in reality, they want to be more kind. They want to be more loving, more adventurous, more sociable.
I know people who are doctors, who are CEOs of companies that lead big, office staff and meetings and everything that are really introverts.
Yeah.
They're not. I mean, on the outside of things, you would say, oh, they're an extrovert, but they're not. I mean, they prefer to be alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go by the definition of introvert, means I get my batteries charged up when I'm alone. Not that I don't like to be around people.
Yeah.
Then an introvert can look just like you or me. They could be on the radio.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of introverts that are on the radio. There truly are.
Really?
Yeah. And I would say there's even some in television, don't you think, Ruben?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Why not? They're everywhere.
Well, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. We're going to talk further. We're talking about the versatile self this evening. Personality is not hard and fixed, and you can actually do. And before we're finished this evening, Carla is going to help plan your personality makeover.
Uh-oh, folks.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
We in trouble. We'll be back. Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living, 1017 FM, 710 KEEL. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Can you can do a makeover? You know, we could really transform Ruben before and after. But can you do a personality makeover?
Well, I guess I wouldn't be in this industry if I didn't think you could.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, what about attachment style? Someone's consistent way of acting or reacting to intimacy, either pulling back, anxiously needing more, or feeling close and satisfied without being smothering. Those are all attachment styles. That's another important aspect, if you will, of personality that people want to change because of the distress that standoffish and anxious styles bring about. Hudson says that most people, and again, this guy's from SMU, Southern Methodist University, Nathan Hudson, he says that most people want to feel more secure in their romantic relationships and friendships, and they want to worry less about rejection and feel more comfortable experiencing closeness with others. Several of his studies, Hudson has asked college students what they'd like to change about themselves, and then he's measured those traits each week across a semester. And he says we've repeatedly found that people tend to change in desired ways. And for example, students who tell us that they want to become more extroverted, and I'll put the air quotes on that since we've already been over.
Okay.
You know, that's just at the beginning of the semester, tend to increase in extroversion across the next few months at a faster rate than their peers who don't say they want to change that. So that's something. There's a lot of evidence then that you can alter your personality, but reinventing your whole life in a positive way requires a clear-headed analysis of what about yourself would be most beneficial to change. Plus, you need to be patient with yourself. Maybe an abundance of patience would help. It's no easy task to know yourself, but that's the key. That's the key to effective personality transformation, according to Professor John Mayer. He's the professor of psychology at University of New Hampshire. He's also the author of Personal Intelligence, The Power of Personality and How It Shapes Our Lives. Personal intelligence is the capacity, he says, to understand and reason about personality. He says it tends to break down into two subsidiary abilities. One is understanding the consistencies of personality and how they're expressed, and the other is seeing the complexities of personality. And both are very helpful for personality change. It helps to know your motivational states and your goals, and then to predict how they're going to impact over time. The artist who is melancholy but likes to work his blue moods inspire may think twice about, let's say, cultivating cheerfulness, because if he's successful at his artwork when he's blue, obviously there's a payoff there, right? So that said, there's no systematic evidence that you must be depressed to be a great artist, but people believe, some people can believe that, can't they?
You don't have to be Hemingway and suicidal to be a good writer or a drunk.
Cut your ear off or anything like that, right? So personality change is slow going. We're born with certain temperaments. We come into the world active or social or anxious, and then we develop ways of coping with childhood circumstances, and those become ingrained and they become reflexive. They get encoded into the brain. With effort, we can move away from these tendencies, but we're often drawn back to them. Mayer likens the process to fixing crooked teeth. I had to have braces, he said, as an adult for the second time because the first time didn't hold. So it reminded me of personality change, he says, because it's a several-year process and it's not easy. If you expect to change your personality by tomorrow, I don't think it's going to happen. But if you're willing to be persistent, then perhaps over a number of years, you can change almost anything about yourself. And, you know, we'll put a plug in right here. A good therapist is a very wise investment.
And remember, your sister, your mother, your brother, your husband, they cannot be your therapist.
No.
You know, so.
No, because they're too close.
But I believe anybody can change. I mean, you know, we make a joke about, you know, that they have to want to, but that's the truth. I mean, you know, when people say, oh, I just want to be happy. Well, okay, what is happy? And then how are we going to get there?
How am I going to get there? Yeah.
And, you know,
am I willing to invest the energy and the effort to do that?
Well, if you really want to be happy, you will. But even all these things that they're talking about, you know, in relationship, I want a loving kind. I want to feel secure in my relationship. That comes from inside of you.
Yeah.
And that comes from you doing your work.
Absolutely.
And so I'm there's not like some magic, you know, thing that I'm going to be able to have, some gift of gab or, you know, beauty or, you know, whatever, this high intellect that's going to make my relationships.
No magic. No magic.
And it's your work on you.
And you know, I was talking to I've talked to a couple of people today about this very thing. I mean, we all want it, don't we? We want. I was joking with a client earlier, and the last thing that she said to me was, "Well, if you do find that magic wand that you say you don't have, please call me."
Right. Yeah.
Get me. I'll get right over here.
Well, you better call me first.
In between our sessions, because there is no magic wand, there is no magic pill, you know. But change is still possible. I love Professor Mayer's, relating it to fixing your teeth. I mean, I didn't have to have braces, but I knew people who did, and it's not a fun process, is it?
No, and I'm one of those people who did have to have them twice. So, you know, and the second time was more painful than the first.
Yeah,
And I think there's some lessons in life that, you know, we learn sort of, and then we have to, you know, learn them some more, and sometimes there's pain involved. You know, it's you have to decide. Somebody told me one time that you have to be so miserable where you are that it can't hurt any worse to go somewhere new.
Yeah.
You know, so you know.
So let me try that.
For a lot of people, it's pain that is the impetus for change.
What a lot in the program, one of the pithy sayings is, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired."
Yeah,
but it's true. You know, you got to get to a point.
You got to get to a point, however that is.
Yeah.
If, you know, if you're tired of bad relationships, of wanting to change it, but the point, I think the major point, the big takeaway from this for me is that you have to be able to truly be honest with yourself and look at yourself.
Yeah.
And that is so difficult because sometimes what we see we don't like. It's not pretty.
No. Now, Professor Mayer says that there is little question that psychotherapy is effective, and sometimes it's really effective, says Mayer. While a good relationship between a client and therapist is paramount, the types of therapy that are most associated with success are cognitive behavioral and interpersonal, which is a shorter-term psychodynamic psychotherapy, with or without the aid of a professional. Change seekers have got to alter. They've got to be willing to alter their patterns. They've got to see the patterns, identify them, and what are they patterns? The patterns of thought, patterns of feelings, patterns of behavior, and they've got to do that over an extended period of time.
Well, you know, we talk a lot. I talk to a lot of my clients about, you know, how many times do we know people who have bad relationship after bad relationship, and they basically keep dating the same or marrying the same person over and over.
Yeah.
So is it the people that they're picking, or is it their picker? You know, I tell them, I'm like, your picker's broken.
Yeah.
You know, and I said picker. You heard that, Reuben. Picker.
He had his hand out.
I know. I saw
that hand
him.
move
He was
towards
kind
the
of
button.
flinching.
Yeah.
So you know, we have to recognize, you know, what are we doing that's that's making our lives more difficult than they even need to be sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got to recognize those habits. We've got to be willing to invest the energy, the time, the effort, and a good therapist will help you. But be ready sometimes to shift in your chair. Sometimes to feel, ooh, do I really want to hear that?
Yeah.
But you know, you got to hang in. You got to hang in because you know it's worth it. So let's talk about some of the down, you know, this down to earth, how to plan your personality makeover. First of all, I think, you know, you got to admit, I mean, nothing's going to happen until you look honestly and admit that there are some parts of you that are sabotaging what maybe the rest of you want.
Well, and that's exactly what we're saying. You know, I mean, if I complain that I always have problems at work and everybody's picking on me and
Yeah.
nobody likes me and every job I go to, it is the same thing, then I've got to look at the common denominator.
Remember that song when we were growing up, Charlie Brown? Why is everybody always picking on me?
Oh, Reuben's wheels are turning. I just saw his light bulb go off.
He's looking for Charlie Brown. I think it was the Coasters, by the way, Reuben. So Professor Mayer says what is remarkable is when people have traits that are interfering so much with what they want to accomplish in life, and yet they don't want to change those. So you have to admit, nothing's going to happen until you admit, okay, there's some parts of me that are sabotaging what other parts of me say they want. Okay. Then you got to make some goals, and the goals have to be concrete. You've got to make goals that each week that will consider your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, and to get those lined up, because those have to be in alignment with what you say you want, your desired trait. If you want to be more agreeable, come up with a list of kind and tender-hearted and selfless types of actions that you can regularly practice, that you can regularly do. Maybe serving others, maybe going down to the rescue mission and volunteering,
So,
maybe buying gifts and giving, even if small gifts, and gifting someone.
So by concrete, you mean specific.
Very
goals.
specific,
Like I
yes.
can't say, oh, I just want to be happy. Oh,
Yeah.
I just want
No,
my
you-
relationship
What
to
are you
be
going
better.
to do? What are you going to do concretely this week that you can measure it? I did it, or I didn't do it, or I did it this much, or I didn't do it that much. You know, it's got to be concrete. It's got to be measurable,
Measurable. So specific and measurable.
and hopefully each week. So we're talking about how to plan your personality makeover. You've got to admit, you've got to make some concrete goals. We'll come back. We'll talk about some more. Well, this is as close.
We didn't have the coasters.
As close to Charlie Brown as he could get, but that's okay. I can. They'll give me the chance to go
Oh,
out
gosh,
saying,
he's gonna sing.
"Why is everybody always picking on me?" We'll be back.
Boobity, boobity.
Change going to do you good. Yeah.
Believe that.
1017 FM, 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. PLPC, Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist, David McMillan. It's probably a good thing to also remember as we talk about and plan our personality makeover, and that's what we're talking about this evening here on Strategies. Just like you can do a physical makeover, you can do a personality makeover, but it's important to understand that we live in a social universe, and we've got to remember that we operate within that social universe and are mostly consumed by our short and middle term objectives. Reinventing yourself requires a clear-eyed look at your long-term goals and how your social circle might influence those. Brian Little, who is a psychologist at the University of Cambridge, describes 3 aspects of personality. He does that in his book, Me, Myself, and Us. The first is biogenetic, and it includes the qualities largely that are determined by our genes. The second is sociogenic, and it covers the cultural and social influences on the ways that we think and the ways that we act. And the third is idiogenic, with a focus on the traits that make someone unique. What Little calls personal projects refers to whatever goals, dreams, or pressing situations a person is dealing with at any given time. So free traits are those that go against our biogenetic personality but are in service of these projects. So it follows then that taking on new projects and passions and spending time with new friends and colleagues are effective indirect ways of transforming our personalities.
So, okay. But one of the things that I think that we need to help people understand is that you have to, what David just said was a whole big fancy way of saying you have to figure out who you want to be. KISS.
Keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you help clients do that? I mean, one of the things that I love to garden, and I love flowers.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I do is I'll ride around in neighborhoods that have, expensive gardeners and I look at the plants that are planted.
There you
look
go.
at the plants that are growing. I look at how their yards look. So then I think, oh, well, I can replicate that in my own way. So as a person, and now as a mature woman, I look at people who are older than me and I think, how do I want to be when I am, retired, when I'm an old lady? And I look around and I see the people who have lives, who have traits that I think is interesting and that I would like to emulate. That help. I guess where I'm trying to go is pay attention to the people
Tune in.
Are attracted to.
Yeah.
And that will help you figure out maybe things in your life that you may want to change in ways you can emulate those people.
Yeah, set up a support system of people who emulate the traits that you want, or who at least admire those traits and can respect the work that you're doing to improve yourself. Professor Mayer says it's harder to bring about a change when other people prefer you to stay the same.
Well, yeah. I mean, and how am I going to learn to be involved in theater, and I won't go to a theater class, or I won't, if I'm going to write, I need to hang around with people who write. If I'm going to
join a writers club or whatever.
If I'm going to be in a band, if I'm going to, I have a friend who's pulled out her drums and she's in her 50s and she's in a band drumming again. I think that's so cool.
So in your personality makeover, we're admitting that there are some parts of you that are sabotaging the rest of you. Other things that other parts want. Make concrete goals each week that will pull your thoughts and feelings and behavior in alignment with what you say you want. There are many paths to change, but psychotherapy is a great choice. A therapist is going to provide a set of insights that then the client has to work through as he or she navigates this personality makeover. And if committing to a therapist over time isn't possible, or maybe it's not appealing to you, then signing up for coaching. Signing up for coaching sessions.
I
Maybe
call myself a coach sometime. I feel like
yeah,
a coach.
yeah. There you go.
Like a mental coach.
There you go. We've already said set up the support system of people that will emulate the traits you want, or at least admire those traits and can respect the work you're doing, and separate circumstances from stuckness. Sometimes the realities of things like raising a family, doing your job, those pressures may make right now a difficult time to fully dedicate yourself to personality change. But if there aren't any environmental factors that are holding you back from changing yourself for the better, then spell out the reasons that it's important to make the change, and then make a plan. Make a plan for implementing those things. You don't have to do it all at once. Professor Mayer reminds us, just one step at a time. Take the step.
I tell clients that all the time. I mean, my dad used to say, or I guess he still does say, mind your pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's basically saying is, if you take care of the small things, if you start doing the little things, if I want to have more friends, or if I want to have less arguments at home,
yeah.
Maybe I start choosing peace.
Yeah.
Maybe I start, whatever those small things are. It's not always all those little things, and the little things that you start to change. If you change little by little by little, it will make big changes in your life. You don't always have to make these broad, sweeping, gigantic changes.
No.
It's sometimes it's minding your tongue.
Yeah, but what's the old story? The tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
Which one won?
Yeah.
So we're as we talk about planning your personality makeover, we'll take our last break here. But when we come back, there is a kicker. There's something that as you do this, Carla, that is so very important to practice. Something that is, I'm going to say, very, very difficult. Based on my work with people and myself, I would say that this is one of the hardest things to do, and we've got to recognize it. It's kind of the secret sauce, if you will.
Okay.
So when we come back, we'll add the secret sauce here to your personality makeover. You game for that?
I like the secret sauce.
All right, we're planning our personality makeovers today on Straight. Yeah, you can do a personality makeover. It's possible. We'll be back. Have you figured out the secret sauce yet?
Forgiveness, I bet.
You're close. You're very hot. You're very, very warm. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. We're talking about personality makeovers today here on Strategies on 101.7 FM and 17 KEEL. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. So practicing, we talk a lot about shame here on the program.
It's toxic.
And it is toxic, and in this thing that we're talking about today, I think it can take you in a circle. So if you experience shame, which is basically different from guilt,
right.
Guilt says I've done something that I need to correct. I've done something wrong. But shame says I am something wrong. And you're not going, until you correct that, you're not going to do the rest of this stuff. So you've got to, that's foundational.
Because you won't ever feel worthy.
That's right. And so related to that is self-forgiveness. So after you've dealt with the shame and you get on your, you set your goals and you do the things that we've talked about, you're going to mess up some. So practice self-forgiveness when you stray away from these newly developed characteristics, as you move toward the bumpy journey of changing your personality, doing a personality makeover. Tempering your expectations help. In most studies, the changes people attained in their personality traits were relatively modest in magnitude. It may be unrealistic for an extremely introverted person to ever become extremely extroverted. So, you're not going to do that. But you can still alter,
Well, you're looking to improve yourself. You're not.
Yes.
When we say change, we probably should say improve. I don't need to be somebody else. I just need to be the best version of me.
Yeah, exactly. And so we admit, we make goals. Psychotherapy will help. And if you can't do psychotherapy, coaching, a support system, and separate circumstances from stuckness. Reality is reality. Give yourself a break. Deal with the shame if it's on board, and forgive yourself. And you got some ingredients towards a pretty healthy personality makeover. What do you think?
I think I'm gonna quote Meg McCormick. You do you, 'cause you is good.
I love it. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living today. We have been brought to you, as we are every day, by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families now for 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. Does my personality look different? How does the backside of my personality look?
It's gorgeous, darling.
Oh, good. You've done it again, Carla.
This was fun.
You've helped us change our personality. Ruben, you've done it again.
Thank you very much.
Not that you needed a change. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies. If today were the last day of your life, and you only had one more phone call that you could make, who is it that you would call? And what is it that you would say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For PLPC Carla McCormick and for Ruben Wright, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.